grant to us keenness of mind, capacity to remember, skill in learning, subtlety to interpret, and eloquence in speech. May you guide the beginning of our work, direct its progress, and bring it to completion. You who are true God and true man, who live and reign, world without end. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So, good morning, and we start with our struggle with our mark again. Yeah. And we tried to finish, that division. Just, that's for helping us. We were dealing with the third one, especially chapter 8, the confession of Peter. That is the summit of Mark's structure. So the part before that, the chapter 8, where Peter confessing Jesus as the Son of God, who is the Messiah. So all the up to that we saw there was a preparation for confession, and after that we see the fulfillment of the confession of St. Peter that Jesus is the Messiah. So,
Father, is Mark the only one that actually makes this statement, or he proclaims it?
No. Other Gospels. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But at the same time, Mark's Gospel's structure is so much to that confession. That's the thing what we wanted to, emphasize. So it is when we look into the structure of Mark, it is progressing to this confession, and after that, it is the fulfillment of that confession that he is the Messiah, the Son of God. So that is the thing what we have seen already. Then now comes the fourth part, chapter 11 to the fourth part is chapter 11 to the last part. That is the chapter 16, the fourth part.
Chapter 11, the what part?
Chapter 11, chapter 11, 1, chapter 11 to 16, that is the whole chapter.
Chapter.
That means 11, 12, 13 and 14, 15, 16. So, chapter 11, that could be, his entry to Jerusalem. And then, the following things, for example, so chapter 11, 1 to 11, that is, the first part we can see. Chapter 11. Can we? Yeah. So chapter 11, 1, 2, that is the important, chapter 16, 8, that constitute the last part. Then here again we can subdivide into three parts. First is 11, 1 to 11, that is, or again a little more further, that is a little, that is 26, 1 to 26. The second part is 11, 27 to chapter 14, 31. Then the third part is 14, 32 to 16, 8. Okay? Chapter 11, 1 to 26. 11:27 to chapter 14:31. Then chapter 14:32 to 16:8. Each part again, this could be subdivided. I don't want to do that, because that is going to, create more complications. At least this much. We can see chapter 11. So let us see the first part, that is chapter 11, 1 to 11. That is the triumphant entry to Jerusalem. No? Jesus entering as the king of people, shouting Hosanna, and entering as a triumphant king. Then the second, 12 to 19, that is Jesus curses the fig tree. And again, Jesus goes to the temple. You see here, for example, that's one of the difficult passages of the Bible. Jesus cursing the fig tree. Do you know why? Here, just read it. For example, the next day as they were coming back from Bethany, Jesus was hungry. He saw in distance a fig tree covered with leaves. So he went to see if he could find any figs on it. But when he came to it, he found only leaves, because it was not the right time for figs. It was not the time for season, no? Jesus said to the fig tree, "No one shall ever eat figs from you again." And his disciples heard him. And this is the same thing, Matthew 21. Take Matthew. Matthew 21:18. On his way back to the city, nearly next morning, Jesus was hungry. He saw a fig tree by the side of the road and went to it, but found nothing except leaves. So he said to the tree, "You shall never again bear fruit." At once the fig tree dried up. Why that? What is the difference you see?
What was the question, Paul? What was the question?
So the difference between Matthew and Mark.
One of them dried up right away and the other one...
They're both were dried up at once. That's not.
Matthew goes in to explain more the significance behind what he did. Mark just records the event, but offers no explanation as to why. Or Matthew is explaining the lesson of faith.
Both of them are, both the incidents are explaining faith. But one thing very clear, Mark gives a detailed explanation of, a comment. It was not the season. You see, in Mark, just again take in Mark. Jesus saw it was not the right time for figs. It was not the season. And that is the difficult part of Mark. And how can he curse a fig tree which is not bearing fruit because it was not the season? And Matthew we don't see that. And that itself is a very clear indication that Mark's gospel is written before Matthew. Because Matthew edits it. Because it is very clear, nobody will understand why Jesus cursed it. No? Because how can we curse a fig tree which is not producing, the figs, because it is not a season. And it was not its fault. And Jesus coming and cursing people, and many times, many people ask me a question, even when we take classes, "Why, Father, this is what he's doing?" Jesus was just coming to the fig tree, and it was not the time, and it was full of leaves, and the fig tree was just
Being a fig tree.
yeah. And he at once, just like an irrational man, no? Jesus was, you have only leaves? No more fig tree. No more figs for you.
Significance, but I don't get it.
It's the both of the that part is in order to show what's called the faith aspect of. That means, you see, Jesus, the faith aspect means when he says something, it happens. The miracle.
Yeah. It makes sense because it's just like if you have a loved one who has passed away before his time. He says, he had so much promise, and all of a sudden he's just taken away. And that fig tree could have a lot of promise, and it could have bore a lot. But Jesus says it's.
So the most important part of it is it's the faith aspect. That is, if you have faith, if you say this, it will happen. Like that, no? But we should not consider it, just the words. My cousin sister, that is a distant cousin sister. She's in Rome. I was, when I was talking about, this faith aspect, should not consider it always what's called the literal interpretation that can cause you so much problems. The literal interpretation regarding faith. If you say you believe it will happen. This is the one thing just happened last Thursday. She is my cousin sister. She's almost like 40 years old, and she was never a driver up to 40 years. And now she's working in Rome, not Rome, in Italy, in a very remote village area. So we don't have their public transportation. So she has to drive now a car. And where she's working, that demands that. Now she goes for the class, takes the classes, and the written examination, the law, no? That passed. She says, luckily. And then comes, because that is clicking, no, by computer, the right answer. There are 4 answers given, and the right answer we click. Somewhere according to her understanding that God helped her. Then she was taking classes, and then the first test that was almost like 4 weeks ago, she failed. The manual, what do we call the practice? Last Thursday she was so nervous, called me and said, oh Father, please pray for me. I said, the prayer will really help you. I said, sure, prayer will help, provided you learn it. And I prayed because, she was so nervous. And what happened, she failed again.
Your prayers didn't help her.
So, if she's, believes that, the prayer of so many people can, save her from test, there is a dangerous test, then the test could be passed, but afterwards she will be a very dangerous person on the roads,
I have a little experience with driving in Italy, and how does anyone fail a driving test? I mean, that's scary.
Yeah. And if you, in Italy, if you are scary, in India, I don't know what is the superlative of scary? Scariest?
Scariest?
Yeah, that could be in India.
Yeah.
Because when you go, you don't drive there, by no means, because it's not very easy to drive there.
It's even dangerous to walk.
And when you sit in the car in the front, when you go to India, please sit in the back side, not in the front side. Then you will, if you go in a taxi, if you sit in the front, in a half an hour you have to go to bathroom. You know why? terror. Because the people come this way and that way, and this, oh my God! So on the backside, without seeing, but what's called the collisions are rare. Because everybody knows everybody, everybody is driving crazy, so everybody is very, very vigilant.
It's all by the grace of God.
Nothing is taken for granted there. Therefore, okay, I am going my way, on my side, and I have what's called the right of way. No one thinks that, therefore, I look everywhere, even behind, and then I go.
Mexico City is like that.
Okay, that is, this is, and I just want to insist on this thing, and here people, especially the kids can ask, so many questions on that. Why, Father, why this Jesus, just did really irrationally cursed the fig tree? The kids, especially the youngsters, they always ask this question. Sure. Here is a very important aspect is, if we interpret Bible without seeing a little bit of background, we cannot offer an explanation for that. Because we see a kind of irrationality, there. Because Jesus cursing a fig tree because it was not season, but nobody can understand that. And especially Jesus, the man who is so kind. And this is, immediately we apply it to person's life.
So how does it apply to what? Let's say, how does it apply to me, Father? I don't get it.
That's why here, that's why, see, if you don't get it, how can a young man, it's really hard.
Well, how does it, let's say you read it. Okay, so how can I apply that right now?
That's why, in the Gospels, in that part, we cannot really, apply the literal interpretation. No. Why that is given in the Gospel is to show the faith aspect of it. That means Jesus coming and, he applied or, he did that, and Mark, put in that Gospel to show Jesus, that's called, he is powerful to do miracles.
Why did he do that? Because he could.
And, in order to show that he is the Son of God and having the power of divinity. And he does that, and so that the other people may believe in him, that he is the Son of God. Without having that preparation, it's very, very difficult.
And that the things are done according to his will.
Yeah.
Whether it's something we cannot.
That's why this is one of the very, very difficult passage.
I was just saying, it's almost like an anti-lesson or a lesson on what not to do. You come with the power of God to someone who is not, and it's not the right season. Don't curse them.
Yeah.
Because it's irrational.
And
Father, do you think he was so hungry that he got frustrated and said that?
That's the way what we do. And that's, when we read with the other passages of the Bible, we cannot apply that. Why? Because even he could abstain for 40 days, without food. He began his life of public life abstaining from food for 40 days. And he could do that. And this way, when he came, there is no fear. He wanted to show to the disciples not the barrenness of the fig tree, but the other aspect. What is it? The power of God. Yeah. And that is why when it came to Matthew, that part is not written, because it is very irrational. Therefore, Matthew edits it. We have seen the editing of Matthew, another passage I have told you. What is it? Do you remember that?
About the,
Very good, clear.
it was about the, when James and John.
Yes.
The mother of James and John.
Yeah. When in Mark, when the disciples themselves, both of them came and asking for this favor, oh Jesus, please make us sitting, on the right and left side.
They were trying to get into politics.
Yeah, but when it came to Matthew, so Matthew edited it how? Putting that words to the mouth of their mother. Because Matthew did not want to, project these two apostles as having this little thing asking, and power. But by that time when Matthew was writing, it was very, very clear that apostles were in a position of high position. And to attribute that attitude to an apostle was really minimizing their what's called character. So Jesus put it in the mouth of their mother. Matthew put that in the mouth of their mother.
And what good Jewish mother would not do that?
Yeah, and every mother can do that, because they want their children in the first place, and we understand that. This is almost the same thing here, and that also gives and what is true, what Mark says was the truth, because it is so archaic. And there is no editing there. And when it is polished, very clear, it is an edited version. Everywhere it is so. It is a kind of, it is polished now. Matthew is a polished version.
So did he write in Greek or Hebrew?
That's all Greek. It's all in
Mark,
Greek.
even there was the first gospel, it was in Greek.
This Gospel of Mark is Greek.
Ancient.
Yeah, Koine Greek. But of course, the scholars say that there existed a Aramaic Gospel of Matthew. We don't have any evidence now, but they say there are, traditions like that. I told you about the Indian tradition even, the Aramaic Gospel of Matthew. Regarding Panthenus, I told you, one day, I think Panthenus was the founder of the theological catechetical school of Alexandria, and he was invited to India. That was in the end of 2nd century, and he was invited into India for and the people of India, there in our place, they gifted him the Gospel of Matthew. A copy of, and that could be, and that is a tradition already from the 2nd century, prevalent in India as well as in Egypt, in Alexandria. So this could be a link of the existence of a Gospel of Aramaic Gospel of Matthew. Could be. These are all what we call hypotheses. Anyway, there existed a tradition like that, but we don't have clear, solid proof for that.
Father, do you
Yeah.
know if we've always had 7 days, we've always had 12 months in a year since the beginning of time?
No, I told them, I already explained. I explained already, about the calendar and things like that.
Yeah, you explained how they changed the name.
Yeah.
I don't remember if we always had 12 months, we've always had 7 days, it's always been 24 hours.
No. It's 12 months. 12 months has nothing to do with what's called the solar system. That we just divided it, that's all.
Because when they say in the beginning they were 800 years old, they lived to 800 years old, Adam. And all that.
Yeah. That's the 800 years old. That is what's called symbolic expression that these people lived long, and at that time a long life was considered to be a blessing from God. So if you die early, that is considered to be a curse by God.
But the interesting part in that, where they talk about all these people living so long, at the end of each description, it says he lived so many years and he died. And the repeated phrase is, he died, he died, he died, he died. When man was never meant to die. You know, so when you see that repeated phrase, that's what you're supposed to focus on. That he died, when there should have not been death. You know.
Yeah, so it's mostly when it is a long life means 800 years, 900 years. Enoch, and even not died. No, he was taken to heaven. Enoch. So all this showing the blessings of God. And even see the Sarah, the wife of Abraham. No, she was conceived, and that's a blessing. To emphasize God's blessing and kind of what's called God's selection.
Father, you think that would be their way of saying today we have said, well, he lived forever. Well, we know he...
Yeah, that's very clear. That's very clear in English. No, he lived forever. That means he had a long life. No. So that's kind of.
Father, but they were very specific in a lot of the Old Testament. One lived 888 years.
Well, they were trying to be relatives then.
And the other one lived...
That's all, it's all mainly, it's showing that they had a very long, blessed life, blessed by God. That is the idea. That not, cannot take it as, for example, 800 years. In the, as we, man might have lived, at that time as we lived. That means 80 years, 100 years, or even 120 years. And even in the Bible they say, what is man's span of life? It says 80 years. In Psalms, no? Yeah, in Psalms 80 years, or even 90 years, and not more than that. In the Psalms.
I was just looking at it. Say somebody lived 800 years. If it was months, it's still 66 years old. But
Yeah.
Most people died when they were 30.
And another thing is that as he said, the calculation of year, at that time when it was written, we don't exactly what kind of the calendar they were using. Yeah. That's also another problem. We are using, a 1 year calendar. No? And that was the calendar what we use now, the calendar, that is the Roman calendar. And the Roman calendar, with the changes effected by the Pope Gregory, and we call it the Gregorian calendar, that what we use now, prevalent all over the world. That was how, that started, I think, in BC 555, something like that, when Rome was founded. This calendar has only almost like 2,500 years old. That's all. The calendar what we use with the transformations. So it has the history of 2,500 years. And Bible was written at least 4,000 years ago. I mean the Old Testament. At least the main stories were already. So by all means, the calendar was not the calendar which what we use now.
And it's been readjusted, like Julius, that's why we have the month of July, because...
Yeah, that's all afterwards. Julius Caesar lived almost like 44 years BC, 44, I think, in that day. I think he was assassinated in 44 BC, 44, something like that.
So we shouldn't take it literally that they were 800 years.
No. We cannot take it as literal. That is the problem. That's why we say always when we study Bible, please don't take it all literal, because it cannot provide a rational understanding. a rational answer.
I think the problem for most individuals, we have a hard time distinguishing which parts do we take literally, because there are parts that we do take literally, and which parts do we.
For example, say there are, that's why we ask the people to learn what is the character of that writing. If you take the book of Job as a historical book, then we are nowhere. No? It's a poetry. It's a poetry, book of Job. And God and Satan having discussions, God and Job having discussions on sufferings. It's a pure poetry. And if you take it literal and historical, that's why we say we cannot take all things as historical. No. Not only that, we have to understand again another thing, what is this. Some of the books are written just using the prevalent what's called literal, using the literal signs or symbols and things like that, but meaning something else. And we have to learn it a little bit, that's why,
I kind of got an interesting example of that. There's a joke about a man was sitting on his porch and civil defense came by in a Jeep and said, this area is going to flood. To get you out of there. So now I have faith in God, God's going to save me. They came back 2 hours later, water's up, they came in a boat and they said, we got to get, no, I have faith in God, God's going to save me. Came back in a helicopter, he's on top of the roof. They said, this is your last chance, we got to get you out. No, I have faith in God, God's going to save me. 2 hours later, the house washes away, the man dies. He comes before God. And he says, I had faith in you to save me, you didn't do anything. And God said, hey, I sent you a Jeep, I sent you a boat, I sent you a helicopter, what more do you want from me? Okay? We take that as a joke. I was in Gaziantep, Turkey, having a business meeting. I was invited to dinner that night. I'm about 10 miles off the Syrian border, okay? It's the first time I had a chance to break bread with our Islamic brethren. And after dinner, we're sitting around talking. There's 5 brothers and the father, and one brother is kind of the interpreter. So I decided to tell that joke. And when I got to the punchline, the brother was doing the interpreting, looked at me and said, that's a joke? I'm thinking, oh, Hagenbach, you're in the wrong neighborhood to be different. And he just looked at me and says, that's a very important story. That's the problem with the people here. They're waiting for Allah to help them, but they don't realize what Allah has put in their hands to help themselves. So he turns around and he tells the story. He translates it into Turkish. And I could tell he got to the punchline. He said, But the reaction of everybody was very interesting. Instead of laughing, they went, they took it like a moral fable. They took it as a teaching, not as a joke. And it's an example of the difference between Western and Eastern views of how you tell a story.
There's a real difficulty, understanding these things. That's we have to be very careful in cracking jokes, here and there, without understanding that some may get even offended.
Well, I did explain. I said, please understand. We laugh because we are not laughing at God. We are laughing at our own foolishness.
Oh, there are,
Yeah, I never told another joke that night.
So, Father, your recommendation is, as we're reading through the Scripture, to have a good companion catechism with you.
That's very good, if you have.
Because obviously, we were talking about age here, what did you say, 80, 90, something like that? Most of us, there's a lot of young guys here, but most of us, I don't know if we have time to become biblical scholars with the time we have left. So we have to follow somebody that has studied this before us. So that is your recommendation: a good Bible, a good catechism, and how about a Bible? The Bible that has footnotes, commentary.
We don't have, as a kind of these things, If you want to have a real commentary, the commentaries are, very volumes. All those things are explained, there are commentaries very, very, and even the commentaries, there are different commentaries, like, for example, very popular commentaries, without so deeper studies, that means technical deeper studies, but very spiritual, very, for example, pulpit commentary, that's a Protestant commentary.
The Ignatius Bible, Revised Standard Bible, the New Testament, does have commentaries, and it does mention catechism, the Catholic Church, the book.
Yeah, see, you remember the Ignatian Bible, no?
The Ignatius Bible, New Testament.
Is that yours? You don't have, yours doesn't have.
No, it's not
commentaries, right?
How they say that, all these things are, the Bible having the footnotes, that will be very small. That small, whatever will be. The commentary is a different thing. It's not a Bible, it's a commentary. So if you have, for example, Jerusalem Bible, that has a footnote, but it is more technical and gives some, this part doesn't have it and another part does have it, and different different references. Somewhere this or this, in this manuscript we don't have this and that, like that. That's not a really commentary, but it is a kind of indications, So some may give a little note. Any Bible, the footnotes, that will be very, the commentaries are volumes. There are. For example, the pulpit commentary, that is mainly, that's a Protestant commentary, but it is beautiful. It's mostly used for preaching. So it's very simple, with stories and things like that. So nice it is to read, it's very easy to follow. But we had to remember that it is a Protestant author, edited it, and it has always that ramification, always in that interpretation.
There are the Navaris that have huge commentaries.
There are so many international commentary. There is one. The very concise, simple, very concise commentary. If you want to have the whole Bible, it is what's called Jerome Biblical Commentary. There's one book. It's almost like this. That's all.
The Navaris are the same.
And that's just commentary.
It's a commentary. So that's called Jerome Biblical Commentary. That's a very concise, small thing. But I think the pulpit commentary is almost like 72 volumes. That means each book having a commentary.
So you said this is a lot, commentaries like that are a lot for biblical scholars, people that are really digging deeper.
This pulpit commentary is not so much of scholars, It's or another simple commentary of the New Testament is called, with so many beautiful stories and very spiritual explanation of these things is called Barclay's commentary. William Barclay. It's very, it's very simple but beautiful, small, very simple. But it has, so many historical references, so many interconnections. To read that, it's really very interesting.
He's Catholic?
No. He's also Protestant.
Well, that kind of goes with how John concludes his gospel, but there are also many other things which Jesus said which if everyone were written down, I suppose the world itself could not contain the books it was written in.
Yeah. And for example, another thing is what's called a German dictionary of the Bible, that is called Kittel. Kittel is an author who edited that, and that is very deep, especially explaining the nuances of Greek even. Why this word is used here. For example, N-R-He. Why N is used there? Because what is its differences of meaning if it is used another way and things like that, pages after pages. If you start reading after one paragraph, you will close the commentary. Because it is
Too much information.
not too much information. The problem is you don't know Greek. And it is presupposed that that commentary or that dictionary is used by someone who knows Greek. And not only knows means, not to read, but to understand the differences. That's why, for example, when I don't watch mostly what's called these are some programs, people laughing. What is that? Jokes program. What is that? Comedy shows. When I see that, I don't laugh. Why?
You don't comprehend
The
it.
background.
I don't understand the background. I don't comprehend the real meaning of it because there are twisted meanings. And suppose somebody says something, even the tone and accent has something lying there, and I don't get it, and therefore I cannot laugh. Only those things I laugh when it is very clear. The twisted inner meanings I don't get. The words play. And most of the times, for example, a kind of some words having some little bit of sexy meaning, and people laugh, make laughing things, and I don't get it. So when people laugh, that's just like when I was in the first year, in the first semester of my class in Italy, in Italian. I was in the master's degree class without knowing anything Italian.
Oh my God.
And when the professor joking and the students laughing, and I looked at my God, all are laughing. What otherwise the people understand why these men is not laughing. What is happening? So I don't want to give a fool's face. So I laughed without even comprehending what really it meaning. That's a true fact. This really happened to me in Germany. In German, this is called Taufe. Taufe means baptism. This means toad, toad. Means a death. Death. So somebody came and Father, today we have a toad. That means there is a burial program, some time so fixed. So it's called, they call it Beerdigung. Beerdigung. Erde means the earth, and Beerdigung means just putting under the earth. That is the weird meaning. So many things are like that in Germany. So this is Taufe. Taufe means baptism. So he came and told, there is a toad, somebody died, and that was in the first year. And the first time when I went into Germany, and the pastor only left, and I was the pastor for 1 month. Wow. So somebody came and told me that there was somebody died and there is a funeral. I understood that there is a Taufe. That's a baptism. So I prepared for baptism. That how I prepared the first year, and that was okay. We collect as much as the homilies for baptism, for funeral, for anything. So there are sets of homilies there. Just make some differences. That's all. And I was waiting for with all this for a baptism, and people came and all came in black. And when by God's grace, I was living just nearby the church, and I saw the coffin inside the church when I came for the mass, and I at once realized, not Taufe, but toad. I ran back, grabbed another homily, and came. And I was so nervous to do that. What is the difference between a baptism and a death? And all the mass structure is changed. And we have to read all the prayers. And this This German is very difficult, especially in the beginning. Oh my God. I even just, that twisted words, Not, this is really, I could not understand. That's why, that was an ordeal the first year of my life in Germany as well as in Rome. That's okay. And even here, learning 10 years in Germany or in India, all the classes in English, when I came for the first time in the United States, people began to speak something and I understand what he was talking about. I began to catch almost like after one week, tuning my ears.
Oh, really?
Sure.
Yes.
Even though I understand English, but my English and the way of talking, the way of accent and everything was different. And I could not understand anything. And almost like 1 week began slowly. Even now, when you speak your dialect, I don't understand.
Father, but the English you learned in India is British. That's not English.
That's not American.
The people say, the Americans say like this. About English, the Americans say like this. English was born in Britain, developed in America, and died in Africa and India.
There's a musical, My Fair Lady, where he teaches this Cockney girl how to speak properly. And there's a song that says, why can't the English teach their children how to speak? He said, in some places it virtually disappears, while in America they haven't used it in years.
And for example, when in India, when you say an American comes, when they speak, it's very difficult to follow because of the accent. Of course, the British a little better. People will understand better. And then we say, if you want to speak American English, what you do is, take the potato, put it in the oven or microwave, bake it, and put in your mouth very hot. Then speak English, then it is American English. No? What we say in India.
Well, another way of saying that I heard a lot is to speak English is to fill your mouth with marbles and try to speak English.
Well, what I say is, if you want to speak real English, American English, you drink 2 glasses of wine and speak. Then it is English.
Of course, the British don't use their lips, though.
Oh, that is very... And another thing, our problem is that we have different languages in India. And people speaking English with their language. The structure, the pronunciation, the accent, all are different, with their local language. So when I speak English, I'm speaking my local language through English. And what is the process going on in my mind? It is like a kind of a translation is going on. I think it in my language, I translate it in English. And the translation span is how much it is longer, the fluency will be like that. That is the mechanism of language. For example, I think in my language, and translation to English. That translation, how much time it takes to translate, that is the fluency. And slowly, when I start, I think and I pick up words, slowly it comes, then the span of translation goes like this, no? Then if it becomes a 0 level, then you are okay with the English.
You're doing all right.
Yeah, sure. Then you begin the translation time, that is if it comes to 0 level, then that means the fluency is okay now. Then comes the process of thinking in English. then only you speak the right language. And I have not yet come to that, even that part. You understand that? That is the thing, the language experts say.
And also, I was gonna,
That's okay, that's, with something else. Oh my God.
the translations also have a lot to do with it.
So, of course, every translation is an interpretation.
It's an interpretation. Because I was looking at Noah when his son saw his nakedness, and I was reading commentary, and I was reading on what it said on a book, Tim Gray, and he says that was a form of saying that he slept with his mother. And that's what it says in Leviticus when it says, do not sleep with your mother, do not sleep with your sister, do not see their nakedness, the nakedness of your father, do not see the nakedness of your mother. And that's a form of saying, don't sleep with your mom and your dad and your brother.
Yeah, and very, yeah.
So it is, they just saw him naked, he just saw him naked and he laughed, but that's not what it means. It means that it has the interpretation that it means that he slept with his mom.
That's all with the language problem.
Yeah.
The very, very, very simplest and very obvious an example is about Adam knew his wife.
That means they had intercourse.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know they had intercourse. I never knew that.
Adam knew his wife. That means that knowledge is, if you say, I know my wife. That's not simply, I know. When we say, I know my wife means, I know her attitudes, no?
Yes, that's what it means.
And her way of thinking.
We are thinking, how does she do this way or that way, things like that. But in biblical language, when in the beginning of Genesis, the first chapter, it is clearly said Adam knew wife. And the next thing is gave birth Abel. That means Adam had intercourse with his wife. So if you just take the word meaning Adam knew his wife, if you don't understand that, it means that. And why it is the intercourse in the Semitic understanding or in Greek understanding is, or the Hebrew understanding is, that is the last and the summit of the relationship. Not simply, a bodily relationship. No. That is done only with if you have the most intimate relationship. And or what we call is the intercourse is what's called the summit of the relationship. That's why many a time in Bible, especially the Song of Songs, the beautiful poetry of Song of Song, we can see what's called sex is considered to be kind of it is sex there in Song of Songs, and it is not simply what called a relationship between the God and soul, and it is explained in way of sex, because the sex is the most intimate relationship. Not simply I see a woman and I am interested in her, I invite her and go and have a bodily relationship and finish and go. No. It is, sex is what's called the last and the highest point of the intimate relationship between a man and a woman. And that is the understanding, the Semitic understanding. And with again, even in the language. That's why so many, I think maybe all these ideas were changed after what called a Second World War. Even in Western countries, it was so, I think. But it was after the Second World War and the sex revolution in 60s, no?
Oh, yeah.
Things have changed, Okay, I can sleep with this man or that woman. That's okay. There's nothing. It's only what's called the sex means, intercourse means it's only a bodily activity. To come to that point is only, I think, during the sex revolution that happened. But it was
sacred.
before that, it was so sacred,
It was sacred.
and it was so, intimate, and that's why it is considered to be very, if it is breached, that is the most important breach, after that. That's why it's considered to be, the adultery considered the most heinous, what's called the sin. And Catholic Church always, you see, if you see the sex, what is the most spoken area of sex? It is this, most spoken area of sin is sex. Because it was the understanding until the Second World War. After that, all these things happened now. In America is far better than most of the European countries.
So what happened after the Second World War that started changing things?
So everything changed after Second World War.
I mean, I know in the 60s, I can see that.
I mean, Second World War, in 45, no? Then slowly began. That's why sex revolution became, in 60s. What we call, Second World War means, Second World War means that's just a time limit we said, that's all. That's nothing to do with, Second World War made a bomb of sex, no. But after, that is 45, Second World War ends, no? Then slowly these ideas began everywhere, construction, this and that, It really changed everything of the world, almost. Everything of the world.
Well, the Lord not only physically ripped up the world, and spiritually ripped up the world too. We didn't suffer it that much here in this country, but when you think of Europe, like in the Ukraine was the front line of World War II for 5 years. These people were caught between two ravaging armies. Europe was like that. And it just tore away at communities and traditional values, and it was just devastating. And that came on the heels of World War I, which had the same effect.
And I think before that, even I would say, before the World War II, the most important event that had the change of the history, the mentality of the history, people, that was the French Revolution. That changed totally, that changed totally the thinking pattern of man. The French Revolution. Not one day or one thing, but slowly. But that's the same thing effect the Second World War produced. Many things. Okay, and we just finished, and we will next time we will take the major themes of Mark, and then we will finish Mark. So the third part is 14. So the second part is 11:27 onwards. We have already seen that 11:27 onwards. Mark, it's all Mark. Mm-hmm. So the question about Jesus' authority and things like that goes. Then from 11:27 to 14:31. So that second part is very, very, very long. The third one is 14:32 onwards. 14:32 onwards. That's Jesus prays in Gethsemane. That is about, the third part is about his passion, death and resurrection. That ends with chapter 16, 1 through 8. Now after 8, we see 9, no? That is the end. We have already seen, no? There are two endings in Mark's Gospel, no? We have already, there is a long ending and there is a short ending, and one of them, at least, the second part is added later. So because, see, Jesus, in this Good News translation, Bible that gives, there is an old ending to the gospel. Old ending to the gospel. And there is another another ending. Yeah. So these are two, some of the parts of Bible, just seeing gospel of Mark. The next time we can see, for example, the main themes, some of the themes of Mark, and then with that we will finish and we will go for Luke. Luke is very interesting. Maybe you will love more Luke because it is very human and it is mostly written for the Gentiles, and it will be more fitting to our setup. So with that we finished for